Hi again! Today we're going to jump into actually writing some code ourselves, but first I want to talk a little bit about your role in this course. So these lectures will consist of me showing you a lot of code on screen, a lot of examples, and I think you'll find it most useful if you occasionally pause the video, switch over to RStudio, and actually write the code in your own file. Because the best way to learn this stuff is to actually write it. So while you may see that a video is only 7 or 8 minutes long, in reality it should take you longer than that to complete the lesson because you should be going into R on your computer and typing in all the code that I'm typing. So with that said, I'm also going to give you a couple warnings to start off with. In my experience of both learning and teaching R, I found that when you run into a problem, most of the time it's going to be one of 4 things. First, R is case sensitive. So that means the difference between median with a capital M and a median with a lowercase m is that the uppercase m will not work because it's not a function in R, but the lowercase m will work. So anytime you make a variable with capital letters in it, you have to make sure that you maintain that capitalization throughout your code, otherwise R won't know what to do with it. The second mistake is spelling errors. It's really easy to be writing the same variable over and over again and to misspell it once and then have R not understand what it means. And that's a pretty easy mistake to catch. The third mistake is having missing commas or parentheses. If you have a really long line of code with a bunch of parentheses, it's really easy to forget to close one of them. So that's another mistake to look out for. And the last problem is unfinished lines. Sometimes you forget to close your parentheses at the end, sometimes you forget to close your brackets, and then R doesn't think your code is done. It won't give you a warning message for this, but the way to tell is that in your console, instead of a blue arrow on the next line, it'll be a blue plus sign because R thinks that there's still more information that it needs. One important thing is when you write a line that begins with a pound sign like this, it writes it as a comment. So any green text R will ignore. It will know that that's not actually code, and it's just to write yourself notes about your code. So anytime you write a new section of code, you should always write in a comment explaining what the code does so that later on you can go back to it and understand it. Because you might remember it now, but if you go back in a week or two, you may not remember. So you should always put lots of comments in your code. So now I'm going to talk about the types of data that R uses. There are 3 main ones, and there are 2 ones that you might run into sometimes, but we don't really have to worry about them. So the 3 main types are numbers, characters, and logical factors. So numbers, that's pretty self-explanatory. Characters, or strings, are things like names, and they're always put in quotation marks. So my name in quotation marks would be a string. Strings can also be multiple words with spaces. So strings are really how you input words. Logical, or what are sometimes called Boolean factors, are true and false factors. And in R, we always completely capitalize both words to indicate true or false. And also an important thing to know is that R represents false as 0 and true as 1. The other 2 types of data are integers, which are just whole numbers, and imaginary numbers, for example, 4 plus 5i, but we won't be dealing with imaginary numbers in this course. So the next thing we're going to do is learn how to set variables. So this is just some basic algebra stuff. So if I run this line of code, x equals 8, now in the environment box over here, I see that x has shown up as a variable and it's equal to 8. Another way of writing the exact same thing is x, the less than sign, dash 8. And that is the exact same thing. Now of these 2, most R users prefer the arrow because later on you'll see that a double equal sign actually means something different than an equal sign, and so that can get a little confusing, and I recommend you use the arrow. You can also overwrite variables, so if I wanted to change what x equals, I wanted to say x equals 9 instead, I can just run that. You can see that in the environment it's replaced x as 9. If I then wanted to say I don't want x to equal anything at all, I can use the rm function, and I can say rmx, run that, and now my environment is empty again. I probably should have mentioned this at the very beginning. I did say it briefly in another video, but when I say I'm running my code, what I'm doing is I'm putting the cursor on the line that I want to run, and it can be anywhere in there. And on a Mac, I press Command Enter, and it runs the line. If I want to run multiple lines at once, I'll just select the lines that I want to run and press Command Enter. On a PC, I believe the command is Control-Enter. Another brief note as well, R can also function as a basic calculator, so if I were to type 1 + 1 and run, then it would give me the answer. I'll just type out all the basic functions, so 1 - 1, division is a dash symbol, and multiplication is that star. The last thing I'll discuss in this session is how to get help within R. It's an easy shortcut. If you use the double question mark, it'll do a search of the help files down in the lower right. So you can see I ran that, and now it shows me all the help pages that could possibly relate to the regression formula. And if I were to just do a single question mark, then it goes straight to the page. And here's another example, summary. So that's a quick way of getting that help box open. So today we've gone over how to write comments in your code, discussed some frequently made errors, talked about different types of data in R, and started learning how to set variables and do basic functions. In the next lesson, we'll learn more about vectors and how to manipulate them and combine them.